You know, how are you going to play your favorite game, watch the 50 Netflix shows that come out, meet with your friends for coffee 3 times per week, and keep up with your grandma who suddenly is struggling to update her iPad and you need to help her? Like, there are just so many things going on that I feel like we are just very scared of sitting down and just relaxing. It shouldn't take me half an hour to get through because, you know, this is a video by Josh Strife Says. If you don't know, he does a lot of content on MMOs in general, which obviously I may. The only reason why my channel exists is because I played too many MMOs. So the video is titled Making Everything Convenient, and then the thumbnail is Convenience Kills Adventure. I 100% agree with this. And that is the eternal dilemma that I feel like games have been tackling, especially now, right? There's the saying, games need to respect your time. There shouldn't be time wasters. You shouldn't have to run around endlessly. And a lot of games are praised because of like how jump in and get out they are, you know? It's the Rick and Morty meme, 20-minute adventure in and out. It's basically what a lot of games are trying to do. And a lot of RPGs have fallen prey to that. Because a lot of games nowadays, if the barrier to entry, like World of Warcraft, for example, the number one question people ask is, can I get into WoW now? The answer is always yes. It is always yes. But the fundamental question that exists already sort of indicates that people are scared of that time investment, right? And especially now that there are just so many games coming out and people are already scared for their time, we keep asking for convenience. But when you can like teleport around from dungeon to dungeon, the rest of the world becomes meaningless and the game as a whole becomes basically a checklist, you know? This is something I myself fall prey to a lot. So I want to hear what he has to say, then we'll talk about it more. Because I am a weird game mechanics enjoyer. I don't care if things are badly designed. I like weird game design that makes me do weird things. That's my favorite thing about RPGs. All right.
The easier you make something to achieve, the less impact and personal pride that achievement will carry.
Why didn't they just fly the eagles to Mordor? I mean, apart from the fact there are many actual reasons in the book, it would have been a crap story. Yes. There are moments when you have to look and go, because it makes a better story. That's fine. Not everything has to be absolutely 100% completely efficient. Sometimes it just makes a better story to do it that way.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we're just going to go completely off base. I feel like with stories, this is kind of a double-edged sword. Because I think, like, there are a lot of cases where obviously they're doing things. I know, he's reacting to himself, which is what I love. But there are a lot of stories where the obvious answer is, of course, it's just because of the story, right? But I don't feel like that is a good excuse in a lot of cases. I feel like you should do a lot of work to explain why. I think there should be like some sort of explanation why they didn't do it. Can I think of an example? I can't really think of an example right now, but you know, I don't think the answer should be as simple as, well, it makes for a good story, you know. I feel like there should be some sort of in-universe. It doesn't even have to be an absolute explanation, just some sort of hint as to why it happened the way it did. But that's about like writing in stories. About games, it's a bit different. We'll get to it.
That's fine. You're okay doing that. Why didn't they just tunnel underground to Mordor? Could have worked. Absolutely could have worked. Just fast travel to Mordor. Yeah. In fact, as long as Gollum's been in there before and now Gollum's in your party, you unlock the fast travel location. You just pop over there, throw it in. Just create a load of gold rings, fling them into Mordor via trebuchet, and let everyone else work out which one is it. While you take the actual one and, you know, throw it into a volcano.
Wait, that's actually kind of genius.
It's fine. We could do it. Convenience does kill adventure. Absolutely. Convenience 100% kills adventure. Who's played Baldur's Gate 1? Imagine if you could just immediately walk back into Baldur's Gate 1 and be like, hey, this guy's the main bad guy. Could we maybe get some wizards to help kill him? And everyone's like, yeah, okay, fair enough. We'll go and do that. And then they just go and kill him straight away. Convenience changes adventure. Convenience changes experience. Convenience means the time that you would spend having an experience is now extended into easier things. It's reduced from the difficult things. And ironically, sometimes it takes away from the things that create the best memories.
Okay, I think obviously making memories, especially in RPGs, this is 100% what I mean. You know, like I'm going to use Diablo as an example, right? It's not the best example, but it's the one that comes to mind right now. You know, Diablo built this massive world, and then they made the best way to play the game just running dungeons over and over again. And then they introduce a mechanic that allows you to teleport to the dungeon. And then they introduce a mechanic that allows you to reset the dungeon. So now what you're doing is opening the map, not even flying, teleporting to a location, running the dungeon, running out, teleporting to a different location, running in, running out, and you're literally repeating the same thing over and over and over with absolutely no break in between. Again, Diablo is not the best example, but I'm just using it as an example. So all of that adventure in between that would happen in the world itself is just invalidated by game design because we want it to be convenient. And I feel like a lot of this also happens in a game like World of Warcraft, for example. Things like catch-up gear are great, but a lot of catch-up gear invalidates everything you did before. A lot of grinds you did before are made easier, which is like, okay, but you sort of arrive at the conclusion of, why did I do it in the first place? A lot of people are always convenience above everything, but I feel like there needs to be friction. I think good friction is what makes a great game. You don't want to like file away all friction. I think that's why Elden Ring is so good, because Elden Ring doesn't give you anything. Elden Ring just throws you into the world and tells you go and figure it out. I think that's exactly why Elden Ring is such a great game, because it is less so a game, more so an experience, you know? Whereas I feel like nowadays a lot of people are afraid of being inefficient, myself included. When I play a game, if it has a guide, I'm using a guide, because I'm not going to waste my time, you know? Simple as that.
Who here in the chat has ever been camping? Because comedy
I love camping.
is just tragedy plus time. That's what it is. A good memory is sometimes a shit time.
I will, don't worry.
That you try and, relive later. And I don't mean terrible as in like actual traumatic and hurt. If you've ever been...
he's talking about like type 2 and type 3 fun. I don't know which one is which, but like he's talking about the type of fun where it's miserable when you're experiencing it, but then you look back at it fondly. I've had a lot of these. And yes, I do think a lot of RPGs are exactly that. When you are angry, bashing your face against a boss in a Souls-like, and then you beat him, and you're like, God damn, that was so good. I had so much fun. That is why I also think we return to games that we hate. Because when you achieve something, it is very, very valuable. And again, it's that good friction and bad friction. Mindlessly grinding for a thing is not the greatest of friction, and that sort of enjoyment won't last. But in a game like, again, Elden Ring, beating a boss will always stick with you. Because that friction was really, really good, and there was no convenience. A lot of people were saying like Elden Ring needs an easy mode. That is literally the antithesis of what the game is about. It punishes you to make you earn that experience. You know, making it easy would just be, again, going off a checklist. Let me just do the Elden Ring boss list. You need to figure things out on your own. That's what makes them a great. That's what makes it a great game.
Camping. Who's ever been absolutely rained out of their tent? Who is absolutely chucked it down, your pack's muddy, your shoes aren't fitting the road. You can't take your boots off when you go camping. So if you take your boots off, your feet swell up, and then when you try and put them back on, it hurts like hell and starts rubbing. And then after you've walked for an hour or two, your feet have shrunk slightly, your boots are flopping all over the place. It's not a good place. Who has had...
I've never had that happen.
Not bad, but a challenging, difficult experience with their friends, with themselves at the time, and then you look back on it now and go, oh man.
Oh my God.
That was a crazy adventure.
When we were... Like, story time with Koroto. When we were 15, 16 probably, somewhere... And actually, no, we were younger. We were probably like 13, 14. We had this youth guard thingy, which was basically... It was supposed to be kind of like, if you want to go in the military later, you would go there. But like we didn't want to, we just wanted an adventure. We had literally zero intention, right? But basically what it turned into was a lot of weird camping. Like camping with an attitude is what it was. And the amount of times we were freezing our asses off in the winter, in the snow, it was so great. I look back at it so fondly. We had an incident, right? So we had these big tents with a furnace in the middle. And there was this night when it was very, very cold, and one of the dudes we were with, he got very angry that it's cold, and he basically made the furnace red hot. And another one of our dudes was sleeping with his boots on, and like the bottom of his shoe just literally melted. So that was great. We have a lot of these adventures. It's so good. I love camping.
You almost smile when you say that. That was difficult. This happens a lot in military-style boot camps, and that is why a lot of the kind of band of brothers attitude exists, where you look back on the difficult times that you survived together and think, oh man, wow, that was difficult. We got through it together, though. You know, it wasn't funny at the time. It wasn't even fun at the time. But you look back on it and you're like, oh man, they were the days. You might have hated high school, but then you get together with the like one person that you got on really well with. You look back and you're like, oh yeah, we had some laughs at that. That is a difficult thing to do. It's almost... It sounds patronizing to say if you've never had this experience, because it's very, very hard to explain to someone that hasn't had it. But there have been days when I needed to get the bus somewhere. I got the bus somewhere. I ran out of, cash. I had no money in my pocket. And I'm thinking, right, the next walk home is 3 hours across muddy fields. And you freaking hate it at the time.
Okay, this sounds like something I can't relate to. I just want someone to
pick me up and take me home. But then like a couple of weeks later, you're like, you know what? That trek across the field was actually... character building, soul searching. I like that.
Okay. Experiences like this, like mild inconveniences like this that are just annoying. There, I don't agree. This is like, I think this is the purest form of coping. This is like a bad thing happened to me. I'm going to convince myself that I was building character. Like mild inconveniences like these, I don't think so. Like to me, they are just like the things I hate. Like if I missed my bus, I'm not remembering that fondly. I'd be very, very mad. I'd be very mad. But an adventure in the woods that was miserable, that's a good experience.
Very much.
Which I think is, by the way, a very good example of what I mean. An everyday thing that you must, like, work a lot towards, I don't think would be as great of an achievement as, like, a huge triumph you only do one time in terms of game design, right? So a repeated... this actually makes a lot of sense. So... a grind you would repeat like every single, like dailies, there's a huge reward after farming for 2 months. It's sort of an achievement, but it's also not really, because like it's just kind of annoying. But again, beating a boss with your buddies potentially, now that is peak. That is a peak experience right there. And yes, you might say that like your road up to there, like doing those dailies played into that, but I think it's that pinnacle thing that can only happen once is what creates those really, really, really good memories. Whereas the dailies are sort of not really, I think a lot of these memories with MMOs also are intertwined with your real life, unfortunately. I think a lot of times when people say, I loved MMOs back in the day, it's not that you loved the games, that you had a very, very good life. Especially with like when we were younger. We would just play games for 12 hours straight.
To find this level, it exists between easy and life-changingly traumatic. This level of... it's not convenient, it's not even fun, it's challenging, but it's rewarding after you've done it. It makes you a better person for having the memory of having done it. It's a test of your own mettle. And games had that. And some games still do. But not all of them, because they take it away because people don't like it.
Exactly.
It's a very, very difficult one to kind of quantify, to measure. But adversity absolutely builds character, without a doubt. But you need to find the level of adversity that you can struggle through. Comfort is the enemy of ambition, as they say. Has anyone, and I don't want to feel like I'm just this patronizing guy sat in the comfort of my own room explaining how you should live. Live however the hell you want. It's your own life. Don't listen to Twitch streamers. Don't listen to YouTubers.
Big true.
Listen to the people that you love and care about, that have your best interest at heart.
Don't even listen to them sometimes.
What I've experienced and what I believe. And if you agree with it, great. If you don't, great. Just ignore everything I'm saying. But there exists a moment where you can come up against a level of adversity, take it on, succeed, and become a better person for having succeeded. Someone in the chat's like, but my parasocial relationships. I'm not trying to influence you, all right? I'm just going to talk about some stuff in my own head that makes sense to me and try and work out the best way to word it. That is the absolute best way to do it. Yeah. And I think that convenience killing adventure is an absolute good way of looking at it. Imagine if you had a choice. You had to climb a mountain, but there's two ways you can do it. You can either hop in the car and have someone drive you up there, or take a week and actually climb that mountain. One of them is way more convenient. But that ignores the fact that it's not about the convenience. It's about the adventure.
I mean, that's very good.
Does anyone else on YouTube watch the channel Business in...
Oh, he's still watching the same video? Oh, it's another 4-minute clip of still the same video. But yeah, I do very much agree with this, right? And I think there's like a Goldilocks zone that you need to hit in order to have it be rewarding, but it needs to be punishing. And like the best example I can come up with is genuinely just like Elden Ring. I think there's a reason why so many people love the game. And I also think there's a reason why so many people didn't like it, because it is punishing. It doesn't give you things. I don't know. I find this really interesting, especially like with modern day World of Warcraft. It has leaned so far in the seasonal direction that it hasn't. I don't want to say it has killed the adventure, because I think there is still curiosity there, but it has sort of killed the drive to do anything, because you know that it will become more convenient. Right? In this case, it's not even convenience itself. It's knowing the fact that there will be convenience in the future. Therefore, you don't even do anything now. It's an interesting thing to tackle from a game design perspective. I love Elden Ring, is what I'm saying, basically. I need to play it again. I've only played it once. I need to play it again. And I still need to play all the Dark Souls games. I've only played, I think, the first one and a little bit of the second one. Haven't played 3 at all. I'll take the car. I don't know, like, also with this, like, going up a mountain, right? I think a lot of this will, again, depend on, like, the external factors around it. So, again, let's use the party and raid analogy, right? So, let's say you're doing your daily quests alone. Obviously, when you're doing just your own thing, you kind of just want it to be done, right? Especially with a lot of RPGs, we are just filling bars. All of us know it. We are just, our little monkey brains are happy to see number go up and bar be filled. That is literally all we want to do, right? But when it comes to social games, I feel like if you have a group of buddies, you might want to climb that mountain, if you will. So I think it really depends on what you're doing and who is also there. And of course also, like, rewards. What do you get from it? Like, in terms of game design. In terms of climbing a mountain, I love to do it, but I die. So, if we're talking about real life, I'm gonna take the car, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just literally gonna die halfway up the mountain. Josh Strife Hayes does a lot of really, really good videos. If you're interested in MMOs, I'm guessing you already know of him. This is what I mean, why you can't be inefficient in the games anymore. Let's watch this.
2007 was peak.
This is the same video. Okay.
For me and my mates used to hop in this Skype chat we had every night after school and all do our own thing. Some of us fished, some trained Slayer, and some just stood around trying to merch.
This is the face of a man when you're realizing that the good days are over. This is the face of a man when you realize, I will never do it again. This is the face of a man when you realize there probably won't be another MMO. It's gonna be sad. Do you know that he's reacting to himself? Yes, this was a meme. You might not know this if you don't follow him. Josh has a bit of he has mixed emotions on React content. So what he started doing is reacting to himself to see whether or not he agrees with himself. And this turned into a bit of a meme where he spends hours reacting to his own content. I think it's funny because I think it's also really interesting. A lot of these videos are super old. So he's basically watching his own opinions from like 2-3 years ago. And it's sort of like seeing whether or not they still hold up. I think it's interesting. Anyway, let's keep going.
And sell things. But every night before we logged off, we'd meet up and go kill a boss for an hour or 2. It wasn't great money because there were so many of us, the loot split was awful.
Oh my god, why does he look so sad?
When was the last time you did something in an MMO that wasn't efficient?
I watched a cutscene once. This is, with MMOs, this is the biggest thing. I think the internet culture has literally optimized fun out of MMOs. Everything has to be optimal. Everything has to be simmed. Everything has to have an answer. There can be no ambiguity. There is no such thing as number 2. There is no such thing as number 3. There is only the best one. The rest doesn't matter, which is sad, but it is what it is. And I think acknowledging that is sort of a good way forward. And it's also why I sort of find it odd how much emphasis a lot of developers put on balance, because like there will always be a right choice, you know. All right, let's see what he has to say though.
What was it? I mean, as silly as that sounds, I used to genuinely have this idea of, it was beautiful. I would get home from school, we had this Skype.
Another example, I remember when I started playing WoW, rested XP was a thing. You know what I did? When I was ready to log out, I went back to an inn and I slept in a bed. You know why? Because it was just cool. It was just fun to play the game like that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was a small lad and I had no idea what I was doing, but it was fun. It was not efficient at all, but it was fun. Internet has just optimized that away. When nostalgia starts kicking in, he looks so sad.
Chat going for like 2 years, it never even closed. There were so many people in the Skype chat, it never hung up. It would get so laggy, but we would keep trying to do it. When was the last time you logged onto a game, did something, and you knew that it wasn't efficient? Because, as they said, the creator of SimCity once said, given enough opportunity, a player will optimize the fun out of a game.
So smart. That is so smart. Who else could have said it?
Have you ever sat down to play a game and within about half an hour to an hour of playing it, if you're lucky, if you even get that far, you start to think, I should go on the wiki and work out the most efficient way to do this? Not the most fun way, not the most enjoyable way, the most efficient way. People seem to have this idea that when you sit down to play a game, if you do not make progress that either the game or the community as a whole recognize as progress, it has less value than you just playing the game for your own way. Have you ever been playing a game and made little progress and thought, wow, that was a waste of time? What a strange...
This is the most fascinating thing I have ever thought. Like, I think about this a lot. I find this so interesting. The fact that we play games and then we say, that was a waste of time. I find myself saying this a lot. Like, a lot. I play a game and I'm like, wow, well, that was a waste. I think a lot of this does come down to game design. All right, so let me give you a concrete example. If you've played Payday 2, you'll know that if you fail a heist, you basically get nothing. You get absolutely nothing. So what does that do? Well, that sort of disincentivizes any loss whatsoever, right? So if you know that if you're starting this thing, you know that you need to be optimal because you must complete it, which creates a lot of toxicity, and it also creates this feeling of not progressing at all. So I think incremental rewards is a good place to start, right? So it's not a binary win-lose. You're constantly progressing towards something. I think that's important. At the same time, I think that is also a bit of a hamster wheel, and that can also feel like you're wasting your time. It's a very complex and bizarre issue to tackle, especially with something like an MMORPG, where nowadays a lot of emphasis is put on like raids and endgame, which is why I was super excited to see what happens to Palia. I need to play it more, by the way, because Palia is kind of the antithesis of that. Palia itself is a life skill MMO where you just build a house. That's all you do. It's not an MMO, actually. I think if it was an MMO, it could be more interesting to talk about because you can actually show off your stuff to a lot more people. But I think it's still a good example. Because that is a game that almost tells you, mess around, do wacky things, and just build your own little house. You'll be great. And I also think Final Fantasy XIV is actually a good example of that. I think player housing is one of those things where people love to be inefficient, and they know it. Whereas with a game like World of Warcraft, I don't do inefficient things. I have optimized fun out of WoW years ago, especially now that it's formulaic and you know exactly what to do. And when you're not doing those things, you feel like you're wasting your time. It's really, really weird. I want to see what happens with a game like Elder Scrolls 6, for example. Can people get lost in that world as well? Because even with Elden Ring now is a solved game. But I think the fundamental game design of Elden Ring sort of disincentivizes you from going to a wiki in a weird way. You know, it's a very tricky balance. Gameplay should be inspiring, exactly. But that's like what does inspiring mean? You know, I think that's what game designers are really struggling with, because you don't want to make a hamster wheel, and you also don't want it to be just like easy. You know, it's weird.
Thing to think. What a strange thing to do, to sit down to enjoy your hobby and to do it in such a way that others may not see it as efficient, that the game may not see as efficient, that you may not progress through fast enough.
I'm stopping again. I think Minecraft is a very good example of this, by the way. I think Minecraft is one of those games that is built on the notion of mess around. You're not being efficient. You're never being efficient. Like, what does efficiency mean in Minecraft? Like, personally, when I play Minecraft, I have literally zero intention of beating the game. I think beating the game in Minecraft is, first of all, it's very easy, you know. But second of all, I think the sandbox atmosphere of Minecraft sort of takes front stage for the game, you know.
And your first thought is, that was a waste of time. People seem to have this opinion, I've noticed it be more and more prevalent nowadays, that when playing a game, you must make progress. Because playing a game without progressing is wasting time.
I think a lot of this is not just games. I think it's our culture in general. I mean, do you have any idea how many people there are actually peddling this hustle culture, right? It's like, I sleep, I wake up at 2 a.m., I go for 3 hours of run, then I read books for 12 hours, I work for 19 hours, and then you start doing the math, and you're like, wait, hold up. Something doesn't add up. You sure you do this? I think a lot of this is literally just our culture. And I think second of all, I think it's just we have so much entertainment that we don't want to feel like we are missing out. I think a lot of this comes down to a very strong sense of FOMO. You know, how are you going to play your favorite game, watch the 50 Netflix shows that come out, meet with your friends for coffee 3 times per week, and keep up with your grandma who suddenly is struggling to update her iPad and you need to help her. Like, there are just so many things going on that I feel like we are just very scared of sitting down and just relaxing, you know? I think for a lot of people, video games are starting to feel like a job, which is a problem. On the fringe of the spectrum are games like EVE Online and PoE. They're designed to be optimized, so players find ways to optimize fun back into the game. Yeah, but a lot of games just can't do that. You know, a lot of games are fighting sort of the opposite battle. They want you to get lost in the world, but people just refuse to do that. They refuse to get lost. Get a third monitor to turn off your phone easy. Well, I mean, that's what I do, right? Like, if you want to hear how much I've optimized fun out of my life, I watch things on 2 times speed. Because I can do things faster. I edit videos on 1.25 times speed. I do a lot of things literally faster. If I can, I literally do it faster. You know, I listen to books now. I do a lot of things that I used to do for fun. Now I'm like, well, I need to squeeze it in. And this is the worst part. I have started listening to some podcasts on 2 times speed because I'm like, I can't miss out on an episode. I need to watch it within my set. It's really, really weird, but I think with a lot of these things, we make up these boundaries which we need to fit into. Because, like, if I always listen to this podcast on a Wednesday, but I still have my Tuesday podcast that I haven't finished, well, now I need to rush and finish my Tuesday podcast so I can start my Wednesday with my Wednesday podcast. I think it's things like that that are just ingrained in us that we want to set these boundaries and we want to be sort of efficient in everything we do. It's really weird. And I think the internet does not help that. Because, again, there are just so many things going on and we want to keep up with everything. I think it boils down to FOMO, mostly.
But playing a game while progressing is not...
I need to live harder because of FOMO. I love that. I'm going to get that printed on a shirt.
Wasting time. And I think that might be because there are so many games available to us now that we want to play...
How smart. How smart. Who else could have said that?
Play all of them. But we say to ourselves, hey, I'm not going to play that game until I've played this game. So playing the game you're playing now isn't just about slowing down and experiencing it. It's about completing it to get it out the way to allow something else to happen. Do you find that...
Why do you think people are so afraid of starting a show? Why do you think people are annoyed when you go on Reddit and there is X worth watching? Is insert anime title worth watching? Is X game worth playing? You know? Okay, with games, there is the financial burden, right? You need to buy the game, you need to play the game. There is at least a barrier to entry. But with watching things, like, especially like now that we have like Netflix and everything, right? A lot of people already have the service, but they still ask, is it worth watching? Our culture has just sort of made you afraid of missing out on things. So you are asking questions like, is it worth watching? When you literally could go and just watch it yourself and just see how it feels like. And another thing, people are afraid of dropping shows. When people start watching something, they feel like they're going to miss out on something or like they need to finish it, you know? Which again, I think all of it links back to FOMO. Oh my god. It's so spooky. Why does this happen? How do we get here?
You have a lot of nostalgia for things that used to be difficult to do because you did them. But if presented with a situation where you are required to do something difficult, you don't want to do it now. You like the memory of having done it. But if you're like, hey, do you want to do it again? No.
Oh my god. I look at my mount collection in World of Warcraft, like, oh my god, look at all these mounts. Someone asked me, you want to do it again? No. No. I'd never do it again. You know why? Because I had a lot more free time. I had so much more free time. It's literally as simple as that. There was no FOMO because I had infinite time. You know? It's sad. It's sad.
You have a good memory of this? Yeah, I enjoy it. I remember these times when me and my friends, used to spend hours being inefficient. Okay, cool. Do you want to be inefficient now? No.
No.
Because the memory is great. But when you say to people, why don't you do that again? Why don't you recreate that memory now and see how it feels now? Suddenly people realize, actually, I have a different mindset now. I have less time.
Yes.
I'm grown up. I have a job. I have kids to look after. Not me personally, but other people who have MMORPG histories have, different time commitments now. And while they remember having...
The thought that I spent like 14 hours raiding per week, to me right now just seems mind-boggling. And that is like a completely different thing. That wasn't being inefficient. Like the sort of the definition of inefficiency, I think just changes as your life changes, And at that point, it's not even being inefficient. It's like being inefficient of where you are now, if that makes sense. So I think sort of the being inefficient in games doesn't actually come from the game design in many ways. I think it is a completely external factor, which is what I've been talking about a lot.
A great time being inefficient years ago, you ask them if they want to be inefficient now? No, they don't. It's very, very... It's almost sad that the fondest memories you have are the experiences that you don't want to have again. Because if you...
That's... okay.
Had them now, you wouldn't be able to enjoy them.
Well, that's depressing. Listen to this again.
That you... No. It's sad that the fondest memories you have are the experiences that you don't want to have again. Because if you had them now, you wouldn't be able to enjoy them.
Now that is a mic drop moment. That is a very, very mic drop moment. I agree with this 100%. I think it's not actually just a game thing. I don't think it comes down purely to games. I think a lot of this is literally our culture. Actually, I think we have a good example. How many of you started doing weird things during the pandemic? How many of you picked up new hobbies? How many of you started watching new things? How many of you started playing new things? How many of you started learning an instrument? Just doing wacky things. Because you had time. There was no fear of missing out because there was nothing you could miss out on. Everyone was locked in their houses and you suddenly had a lot of time on your hands. Because I did. I started my YouTube channel. Like literally, I started watching One Piece. I did so many things because I had time. I think it's 100%. Which, by the way, I think with remote work, especially like if we're going to, this is getting full sci-fi, I think when we start getting into proper VR and everything like that, and people don't have to commute, and we can start meeting in virtual environments and everything like that, and I think we just, generally the people just have more time on their hands again. I think this will come back again, This is also why a lot of research about universal basic income. So basically you wouldn't have to work, you would just get income by the government every month. This is like the number one solution to all the problems with AI. If we were to have universal basic income, a lot of people say you wouldn't do anything. No, humans are not built like that. Humans get very, very bored very, very quickly. I think with UBI, people would just start doing random things they want to do. I think creative work would really pop off. First generation YouTubers, if you can call them that, was basically what happens. People are bored, they want to make things. With literally zero financial incentive, they just make things because they want to make things. They're like, people always say, oh, universal basic income, everyone's going to sleep in their houses, it's going to be no big deal. No, people don't do that. I don't know how I'm getting from video games to UBI, but I think all of it just comes down to time. Very good videos by Josh Strife Hayes. Maybe I should start reacting to my own videos as well. That's why I never consider playing WoW Classic. Well, I mean, to an extent, I think so. I think it's kind of healthy to be like, I experienced that, and I don't want... It might, like, you tell yourself it might be good, I might like it, but I don't want to mess with that memory. I hold that memory very, very dearly, and I almost don't want to mess with that memory, you know? I think that is actually, in a weird way, I think that's kind of healthy. Maybe you are missing out on something, but you kind of accept that. I think that's also an interesting way of looking at it. I'll link this as well. Josh Strife Hayes never misses with his commentaries. Oh my god! I spent another 20 minutes